in my community, as well as the gorgeous surrounding nature and its history, which I was absorbing and exploring with considerable passion as a kid. After high school, I had the good fortune to attend Grinnell College in Iowa, and again I took advantage of every opportunity I could glom onto. The courses, the great teaching faculty, along with the diversity of my classmates who came from many states and many countries. I went back to visit Grinnell, as a matter of fact, last week for a volunteer weekend, and that town has been transformed, I think, by the college. And the college, of course, there are lots of old buildings left, but there's a huge amount of new ones as well. Well, I majored in psychology at Grinnell, but I took every course I could manage in writing and literature and the visual arts, along with philosophy and history and French. I submitted stories I wrote to the Arena Creative Writing magazine that the college sponsored, and I think that's still going on there. I adored Grinnell College, and I still do, and I got a sense there of how lucky I've been so far in my life to have had so many opportunities to learn how to think and write, even though my mom had been sick and the depression and the war had made us all have to learn how to be really thrifty and help each other out. Most of all, I think living in Iowa in those times helped me understand how rich life is with adventures and opportunities, even though one might not have a lot of money or power. For sure, I learned the importance of avoiding choices that might interfere with new chances for exploring and learning. And that's something I said to my kids, and I say to my grandchildren now. Always keep open your choices for new opportunities. So after Grinnell, I opted for marriage and had two beautiful children while working for several years as the news director for college relations at what was then Iowa State Teachers College in Cedar Falls. I took some college courses in poetry and fiction writing on the side with, maybe some of you know this man, Professor James Hurst, who is a very famous and wonderful poet.
Snakes in the grass?
Beg your pardon?
Snakes in the grass?
Yes, indeed, yeah. Who encouraged me to take writing seriously. It was he who introduced me to Verlin Castle, an outstanding novelist who had been born also in Cedar Falls, and by then was teaching at the Writers' Workshop in Iowa City. With their encouragement, I applied, and in 1964, my kids and I moved to Iowa City, where I entered graduate school. Writing was still pulling me where it seemed I needed to go, into the humanities, the dynamic processes of human experience, thought, and expression as they are revealed in stories and novels. As Mr. Castle famously said, writing is a way of coming to terms with the world and oneself. The whole spirit of writing is to overcome narrowness and fear by giving order, measure, and significance to the flux of experience constantly dinning into our lives. And of course, I landed right in the middle of some of the country's best writers, both faculty and students, who are central to my Vonnegut memoir. Mr. Castle, who wrote a splendid nonfiction book called Writing Fiction, in addition to many novels, was an extraordinary teacher about the nature of the story and its form. He helped me understand the profound intimacy of how the life choices and language of characters can shape the richness of any work of literature. Richard Yates, with whom I also studied, was not that kind of teacher, but his first novel, Revolutionary Road, was runner-up at that time for the American Book Award. And it was also the brilliant runner-up, that was in 1962, for that award, as well as, some of you may have seen last year, an adaptation of that book as a film, as a movie. I also took other, more academic literature courses in history and theory. And for groceries, I worked half-time for the University News Service, interviewing faculty, authors, and professors about their programs, which conveniently gave me a second liberal arts education. Come on in. If we know you were coming, we would have waited.
No, we wouldn't.
Just getting to the best part.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll save that one.
My next year at the workshop, with new faculty and courses, provided approaches to writing almost palpable in their rich differences. My fiction writing teacher who replaced Berlin Castle was Kurt Vonnegut, whom neither I nor any of my fellow students had heard of, let alone read. But if Castle believed the proper goal of fiction was, quote, at any time to go as gently, deeply, savagely as possible into life as life really is, Kurt Vonnegut believed a story could reveal life's realities as the absurd accidents and bizarre contradictions they often really are. One of his goals was to create novels whose characters can survive painful paradox with the power of naive audacity or even clownish whimsy. This was something he knew about very well, since his experience of the Great Depression was a lot different from mine. His very wealthy parents in Indiana had lost their family fortune, and his mother had committed suicide on Mother's Day, just a few months before he was shipped overseas as a young soldier to fight in the Battle of the Bulge during the last days of World War II. There he and his buddies were captured by Nazi forces and imprisoned in the beautiful open city of Dresden. And it was there that he experienced how it feels to lose all opportunities and face death in an underground prison, an actual meat-packing slaughterhouse, when the city of Dresden was firebombed by the massive air forces of Great Britain and his own American countrymen. Kurt Vonnegut and his fellow prisoners were among the few survivors of those firebombs. And it's one heck of a way, I think, to learn about paradox, that you get bombed by your own people in a slaughterhouse, and you're the only ones walking away when most of Dresden he helped to bury as a prisoner. While some writers believe fiction carries us to the heart of experience as only language can, Vonnegut believed the heart of experience was often shaped by ignorance, if not absurd or insane cruelty, and therefore should be taken as lightly as possible with language of comic avoidance or playfulness. Both approaches seemed true and insightful to me, and I felt they provided a useful richness of choices and understanding, unlike anything I had understood before. Unlike Castle, who would go deeply into the pain of life, Vonnegut would avoid it as best he could with comedy and satire. They both came from rather dramatically different paths, and I think that had a lot to do with it, but I was intrigued by his mind. It was a wealth of insight that took me some time to incorporate into my own thinking, let alone my writing. In fact, it's still a challenge even now. I can never write like Vonnegut. But because I was deeply involved as a single mom, and as well as a public relations writer and a student of fiction writing, I found myself questioning how and whether writing is actually capable of overcoming the cultural narrowness and political differences I increasingly observed in a shrinking world. Is it really possible to give measure and significance to the complex flux of experience invading our lives? To me, it was a moral life question as well as an artistic one. And now, 40-some years later, I still find it's a major moral question. I've been lucky enough to have experienced life's richness and complexity with more delight than loathing. I taught fiction writing and humanities and literature courses for 30 years at the University of Northern Iowa after I finished my graduate degree at the University of Iowa. I've been able to travel the world, and I've met a wealth of interesting and complex people. I studied and visited firsthand the art and artifacts of the earliest upright walking humans we know about, who frequented the caves of France and decorated its walls with their drawings and paintings some 30,000 years ago. I had the distinct and honored pleasure to be able to go into Lascaux Cave as one of the few visitors that are allowed in there once every month. Those people 30,000 years ago were making stories and pictures about what life meant to them on the walls of their caves. We've been at this task for a long time. And to tell you the truth, I'm really not sure that Twitter or Facebook can capture our present growing complexity of life and its impact on the world. I need the depth and complexity